Mr. Big is a technique used by police and intelligence agencies in major criminal investigations. A fake criminal organization consisting of policemen is created. The suspect is persuaded to join the organization by chance or in exchange for money. Once convinced, the suspect thinks that he or she has entered into a deal that will leave him or her unharmed. The police arrange for the suspect to have a chance encounter with the organization. Over time, trust is built between the fake organization and the suspect. All the work assigned to the suspect is completed successfully, and the suspect is seen as a rising figure within the organization. The successful suspect is introduced to the leader of the criminal organization. Mr. Big is actually a professional interrogator. Mr. Big gives the suspect details about his past and tells him that he cooperated with the police, and that's why he rose so fast in the organization, and threatens him and even creates a fake execution scenario. At a moment when the suspect is very scared, he tells him to tell him everything about his past, and to tell him everything so that there will be no trust issues between them. He tells him that only in this way can he trust him, and that he will become one of the important figures of the organization, which leads the suspect to confess. The last interview is recorded, and once the confession is complete, the fake criminal organization is exposed as police and the suspect is arrested. This technique is usually used as a last resort and is usually successful because the suspect is aware of Mr. Big's power and luxury. Big's power and luxury, the suspect is both afraid and unwilling to leave. Hypothesis testing. During the hypothesis testing interrogation process, the suspect is presented with an imaginary scenario by the police. This scenario should be similar to the one experienced by the suspect. In the imaginary scenario, the police ask the suspect questions such as, let's say that a friend of yours is experiencing this situation, not you. What would your friend do in this situation? The suspect is forced to look at the situation from the outside, and her point of view and contradictory answers are used in the interrogation process. In this case, a body language expert monitors the interrogation from outside the interrogation room and analyzes how the suspect reacts to imaginary events. Good cop, bad cop. Good Cop, Bad Cop is named after the 1900s comic book characters Muff and Jeff. While Muff played the role of the tall, thin, and cunning bad cop, Jeff played the role of the short, stocky, and naive good cop. In this interrogation technique, police with two opposite approaches interrogate the suspect. The bad cop adopts a hostile approach with threats, while the good cop adopts a sympathetic approach with empathy. The good cop starts to protect the suspect from the threats and accusations of the bad cop. This helps the suspect to build trust in the good police and instinctively cooperate. Minimization and maximization. Minimization and maximization is a psychological technique used in interrogation. It aims to break the psychological resistance of the suspect by exaggerating or minimizing the incident, and to make the suspect confess. For example, the seriousness of the crime is underestimated by telling the suspect that this incident can happen to anyone. The aim is to comfort the person and encourage him to confess. Or it is said that this is a very serious crime, and if you do not confess now, the consequences will be more severe for you. In fact, the aim is to scare the suspect into confessing. Pause technique. The pause technique is often used unwittingly in police interrogations, psychological manipulation, and even between partners. It involves asking the suspect a question and then waiting in silence without breaking eye contact. The suspect feels pressure and stress. This is a very effective method, and you can try it. For example, you can ask your best friend the following question: "Are you hiding something from me? Have you been acting strange lately?" Your silence will make her more worried, and you will learn a lot of information. Rapid fire. Rapid fire is a technique that prevents a suspect from fabricating a case. It takes time to construct a fake case, but rapid succession of questions disrupts his plan. This technique involves more than one interrogator. Before the suspect can answer a question, another question is asked, and then another. It confuses the suspect and makes him contradict himself, because he has little time to formulate answers. The suspect contradicts himself in ways that will get him caught. Reverse chronology technique. In the reverse chronology technique, the suspect is asked to give a long account of how the incident took place. The suspect recounts the events in sequence. The interrogating police officer asks the suspect to tell the story again, but from the end to the beginning. If the event is a fiction, the suspect will say inconsistent things. This is because the human brain finds it difficult to recount a fictionalized event in reverse, and the suspect is caught. Body language technique. Body language technique is not a technique that ordinary interrogation police officers can perform. It requires a high level of training and experience. Body language analysts are usually found in federal agencies such as the FBI, CBP, USSS. These specialists come into play when the information that the suspect or criminal has to give is urgent and the suspect refuses to talk. These experts trust the language of the body, that is, the information provided by gestures, micro-expressions, and posture, more than words, because they know that body language is the only common language in the world. PEACE technique. The PEACE technique is a 5-step method used by the British police. Its aim is to reduce psychological pressure. Planning and preparation. Evidence, information, and strategies are identified. Engage and explain. Interrogation. Police introduce themselves and establish a relationship of trust. Account. The suspect is asked to give a detailed description of the incident. Closure. To finish the interrogation without tiring the suspect too much. Evaluate. The information obtained is reviewed and compared with the evidence. Reid technique. Since the Reid technique is an aggressive and oppressive method, it was banned in some states in the USA in 2020. In this technique, the body language clues of the interrogated person are analyzed. The suspect then undergoes a 9-stage interrogation process. Direct confrontation. The suspect is told that it is known that he has definitely committed the crime. Theme development. The suspect is confronted with the crime by providing a motive. Handling denials. The suspect's denials are not accepted. Overcoming objections. The suspect's objections are not accepted. Retaining suspect's attention. The suspect is approached more physically. Handling passive mood. Observing the psychological breakdown of the suspect. Presenting an alternative question. Presenting the suspect with options for a lesser sentence. Developing the confession. The suspect's confession is linked to concrete evidence, e.g., where did you bury the gun? Securing a written confession. A written confession is obtained from the suspect. According to some sources, innocent people have also confessed to the crime due to psychological pressure. Polygraph. Polygraph is a tool for lie detection. It uses heart rate, sweating, respiration, and brain waves. Time pressure technique. The time pressure technique involves putting time pressure on the suspect. The interrogation police use deception such as, if you confess now, your sentence will be reduced. People never like to miss an opportunity. The suspect thinks that this might be an opportunity not to be missed. Stepwise confession technique. The stepwise confession technique is a technique for getting a suspect to confess step by step. It argues that it is less intimidating to approach the suspect in small steps. The suspect responds more moderately in this way. False witness. False witness involves the use of false witnesses or evidence to manipulate a suspect in an interrogation. Evidence bluffing. Evidence bluffing involves the interrogating police making a suspect confess by presenting false evidence, e.g., we found the gun and your fingerprints are on it. Every mental complex. Messiah complex. The Messiah complex is when a person sees himself or herself as a Messiah figure in society. They feel the need to be worshipped, followed, and respected. They ignore their own needs and make constant sacrifices in order to gain the admiration of others. They believe that their coming to the world has a different purpose than other people, and that they will change people's fate and lives. This concept can often be seen in government leaders, clergy, health workers, teachers, and influential social organizations. God complex. The God complex is similar in name to the messianic complex but completely different in meaning. People with a God complex exhibit narcissistic personality disorder. These people are extremely arrogant. They see themselves as superior, more powerful, knowledgeable, and capable than any other person in the world. They want to be in control of everything. They never admit their mistakes, even if they are terrible managers. They prioritize their own feelings and interests, do not care about the feelings of others, and do not empathize. They do not care about the opinions of others other than their own. They accept their personal opinion as the undisputed truth. They do not respect the traditions of society and expect special attention and privileges in society. This complex is often found among bosses, influential people in society, and political figures. Alexander the Great and the fictional character Dr. Gregory House are examples. Oedipus complex. The Oedipus complex is a theory put forward by Sigmund Freud. According to this theory, Boys between the ages of 3 to 6 feel a sexual attraction to their mothers and see their fathers as rivals. According to Freud, in a healthy development process, the child suppresses these feelings and communicates better with his father. The Oedipus complex is inspired by the story of Oedipus in Greek mythology. King Oedipus unknowingly kills his father and unknowingly marries his own mother. Oedipus has 4 children with his mother. In time, the truth will come out. His mother, Jocasta, commits suicide by hanging herself, and Oedipus pokes his eyes out with needles he takes out of his mother's dress and goes blind. Electra complex. The Electra complex is the person forces himself to follow strict diets and heavy exercise programs to improve his body. Men with an Adonis complex are rivals of men with perfect bodies on social media, and this stresses them out. Men with Adonis problems often suffer from lack of self-confidence, depression, anxiety disorders, and social isolation. The person thinks that he will overcome this situation only when he has a perfect body. Men with this complex may consume excess protein or use anabolic steroids. People with the complex consider themselves to lead a healthy life and do not feel the need to seek help. People with the Adonis complex always see themselves as inadequate in the mirror, no matter how muscular they are. The term was inspired by the figure of Adonis in Greek mythology. Othello syndrome. Othello syndrome, also known as pathological jealousy, is a delusional disorder in which a person firmly believes that their partner is unfaithful without any logical reason. It comes with obsessive thoughts, controlling behaviors, and restricting the partner's freedom. The name comes from Shakespeare's play Othello, in which the character kills his wife because of a false belief of infidelity. Napoleon complex. Napoleon complex usually refers to a condition in which short men behave aggressively, ambitiously, and knowledgeably in order to compensate for the deficiency they feel because of their height. People with this syndrome think that taller people are more attractive and powerful, and this creates an inferiority complex. The term was inspired by Napoleon Bonaparte, who was of average height but was known for his pursuit of success and power. Inferiority complex. Inferiority complex is a state of feeling inadequate, worthless, or incomplete compared to others. The salient characteristics of people with this complex are: they compare themselves to others, are sensitive to criticism, avoid social situations, underestimate the achievements of others, often talk about themselves in the company of friends, and constantly want to be approved and appreciated. For example, if a person with this complex is male, they may constantly want to prove their strength, while if they are female, they may wear excessive makeup and low-cut dresses. Guilt complex. Guilt complex. They feel intense feelings of regret and guilt for past and future actions, even if they are not caused by the person themselves. It can be very difficult for them to live. Cinderella complex. Cinderella complex is the psychological term for a woman's desire to be rescued by a Prince Charming, just like in the Cinderella story. A woman with this complex needs someone else to be happy. She finds it difficult to make decisions on her own. She is afraid of responsibilities. For example, instead of advancing in her career, a woman may marry a rich husband and expect him to take care of her financially. This term was popularized by Colette Dowling's 1981 book, The Cinderella Complex: Women's Hidden Fear of Independence. Youth complex. Youth complex is known as the fear of losing one's youth after middle age and trying to look younger. Youth complex is caused by a person overvaluing youth and beauty. In order to look younger, a person may wear clothes that are not suitable for their age. They may have aesthetic surgery. They may even resort to youth elixir fallacies. These people have an excessive longing for the past and their youth. Judged complex. Judged complex is a psychological concept in which a person fears that they will be criticized by others. People with this complex give excessive importance to the opinions of others when taking an action. If they receive criticism from anyone, it affects them deeply. The most prominent characteristic of people with this complex is that they are insecure. It is often seen in children who are constantly warned and scolded by their parents at a young age. Peter Pan complex. The Peter Pan complex describes an older person whose emotional life remains at the adolescent level, avoiding responsibilities and preferring a more childlike attitude. It is named after Peter Pan, known for his refusal to grow up and his desire to stay young forever. People with this complex often leave important decisions to others. They have a low tolerance for disappointment. They are characterized by a fondness for fun and games, overdependence on family, lack of seriousness in romantic relationships, and live in a fantasy world. Parental complex. Parental complex is a psychological condition in which a person's relationship with his or her family during childhood influences his or her behavior and emotions in adulthood. It manifests in feelings of overdependence, anger, guilt, or rejection. There are 4 types of this complex: Electra complex, Oedipus complex, parental dependency, and parental rejection. Hero syndrome. Hero syndrome is when a person creates fake crises in order to be seen as a hero in the eyes of others, and then solves the crisis and becomes prominent. It is usually done to be appreciated, to feel important, or to attract attention. For example, in the movie The Incredibles, the character syndrome endangers the world with a robot of his own creation. He then tries to look like a hero in the eyes of people by defeating the robot, but this is entirely his own plan. Every political ideology. Capitalism. Capitalism is based on private ownership of the means of production and is based on profit-oriented operation, focusing on driving the consumer to consume more and make more profit. Corporatism. Corporatism is a political ideology similar to capitalism. The difference is that instead of profit maximization in economic activity, the stability of society is at the forefront. The state is the intermediary at this stage. Conservatism. Conservatism in Western culture. It emerged with the sudden reforms after the French Revolution, while conservatism seeks to protect culture, the family, religion, property rights, the structure of government, and the military. Liberalism. Liberalism advocates individual rights and freedoms, equality, and limits on the power of government. Liberals generally believe in human reason and believe that peaceful resolution of conflicts can improve society. Conservatives accuse liberals of neglecting traditional values. Populism. Populism, also known as popular interestism, assumes that an elite group in society is blocking the interests of the people. It is the organization of the people by a charismatic leader to regain right. Fascism. Fascism is the extreme right-wing thought first created by Benito Mussolini in Italy. It is an extreme nationalist political ideology based on an authoritarian state. Fascism emerged against communism, Marxist socialism, liberalism, democracy, conservatism. Nationalism. Nationalism is an ideology that asserts that the culture and identity of a particular nation is superior to others. Nationalism fosters pride and social cohesion and defines itself in contrast to other nations. Libertarianism. Libertarianism is an ideology that believes that freedom is the most important value in politics. According to libertarian ideology, people being free can create a safer, fairer, better world. It advocates voluntary cooperation and the primacy of individual decision-making. Marxism. Marxism is an ideology that advocates the emancipation of people and defends class distinctions. Marxism includes political, economic, and philosophical teachings. Monarchism. Monarchism is a political ideology in which a single monarch rules the state. The people do not have the right to elect and be elected. The monarch does not change until the end of his life. And when the monarch's life ends, family members continue to rule. Feminism. Feminism is an ideology that advocates equal rights for all genders. Authoritarianism. Authoritarianism, as the name suggests, comes from the word authority. It is a political ideology based on a particular leader, party, or military power, governed by a strong central authority that rejects pluralism in politics. According to authoritarianism, concepts such as the rule of law, legislative, executive, judiciary, democracy are unacceptable. Ecofascism. Ecofascism is an ideology that seeks to preserve the natural order by enforcing a strict policy on society. It focuses on reducing the population in order to protect the environment. Communism. Communism is called far left by political thinkers. Communism is based on classlessness, common property, a social order without money, and without a state. Socialism. Socialism is an ideology that argues that the social and economic welfare of society will be determined by the democratic decision of the people, and that production, tools, and land belong to the people. Socialism dislikes capitalism and supports public-based production instead of private production. The difference between socialism and communism is that socialism wants to maintain the existence of the state. Imperialism. Imperialism is a political ideology in which a state attempts to coerce another state for its own interest and exploits the resources of the affected state. Theocracy. Theocracy. In short, the clergy is responsible for the administration of the state. The rules of the state are the same as the rules of religion. Anarchism. Anarchism. The basic principle of anarchism is statelessness. They are against traditional politics. They reject all kinds of authority. They advocate private ownership of the means of production. They prioritize freedom. Democracy. Democracy is a political ideology in which power belongs to the people and results in the direct participation of the people in the election of leaders. Leaders can be criticized, replaced, judged, and prevented from abusing power. Technocracy. Technocracy. The political and economic process is based on science and rationalism. It is a political ideology in which the management of political institutions and decision-making authority is exclusively in the hands of technical experts. Technocrats are scientists, engineers, technologists. Internationalism. Internationalism is an ideology in which peoples beyond nations work together to address global challenges and promote peace and prosperity. The World Health Organization, the International Criminal Court, the World Trade Organization, the International Committee of the Red Cross are all representatives of internationalism. Third way. Third way politics is a political ideology that plans to reconcile left and right politics. Totalitarianism. Totalitarianism is an extreme political ideology in which the state completely restricts public and private life. The state uses secret police, censorship, and propaganda to maintain control. It uses fear, intimidation, and violence to subordinate the population to the totalitarian regime. The regime rejects a free press, independent organizations, and political opposition to the regime. It completely controls the economy. Neoliberalism. Neoliberalism is an economic and political ideology that argues that limited government intervention will increase the economic entrepreneurship and individual freedom of individuals. Trotskyism. Trotskyism is a Marxist ideology put forward by Leon Trotsky. The ideology of Trotskyism advocates the solidarity of international workers and claims that this is the only way to achieve workers' revolution. Trotskyism opposes Stalinism and bureaucratic authority. Maoism. Maoism is a Marxist ideology put forward by the Chinese revolutionary Mao Zedong. The principles of Maoism are cultural restructuring, revolution, and people's wars. He argued that peasants are the vanguard of people's wars. Maoism opposes imperialism, capitalism, and bureaucratic structures and argues that these structures create an earthquake effect in society. Anarcha-feminism. Anarcha-feminism is an ideology that combines anarchism and feminism. Anarcha-feminism believes that the oppressive power of the state and the inequality between the sexes are caused by male governments. Anarcha-feminism advocates the abolition of the state and patriarchal institutions. Anarcha-feminism does not accept concepts such as gender, class, race. Secularism. Secularism is a political ideology that advocates the separation of state affairs from religion. It rejects the establishment of laws according to religious rules and instead supports the application of universal human rights and rational principles of law. Secularism is sensitive to issues such as individual freedom, education, health, and law. Fabianism. Fabianism is a Marxist ideology that argues that in order to achieve social goals, gradual changes will be less harmful to society than revolution. Fabianists think that they will protect the rights of the working class by gradually changing the capitalist system. Fabianism advocates reform in the areas of public services, education system, healthcare, social security services. Transhumanism. Transhumanism is an ideology that plans to improve humankind technologically. Transhumanism advocates the improvement and development of human life with the help of biotechnology, nanotechnology, artificial intelligence. It advocates the creation of a physical and mental superhuman by combining the brain and software. You can learn more and become superhuman by watching my videos. Subscribe. Every war tactic. Phalanx formation. The phalanx formation was used for many years in ancient times, especially by the Greek and Macedonian armies. The phalanx formation uses long spears and shields. The reason for this tactic is to reduce the numerical superiority of the enemy army. This tactic is more of a defensive tactic that can be applied on flat terrain. Soldiers line up in 8 to 16 rows. The soldiers in the line get as close to each other as possible. The soldiers hold a large round shield in their left hand and long spears in their right hand. When the enemy army attacks, the phalanx formation waits with their spears extended over their shields and reduces the enemy's numbers. If a soldier in the front rank of the phalanx is wounded, the soldier in the rear rank immediately replaces him. The phalanx are invincible in the front line but completely defenseless in the rear and flanks. This battle tactic was often used by the Spartans and Alexander the Great. Sniper trap. The purpose of the sniper trap is to locate enemy snipers. This tactic is used in urban battles and open terrain. Sniper trap is done by using a false target that will attract the attention of the enemy sniper. For example, it can be a helmet, model mannequin, boat, drone. These objects are placed in the enemy sniper's field of view, and he is expected to fire. The location of the trapped sniper is determined by acoustic direction finding device or by eye. The enemy sniper's position is destroyed by long-range artillery tanks or Air Force planes using pinpoint strikes. The enemy sniper is neutralized. Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg aims to neutralize enemy lines with rapid attacks and defeat them unexpectedly. This tactic requires excellent coordination and communication between naval, air, and land forces. This tactic begins with the Air Force destroying the enemy's air defenses, lines of communication, and fuel depots. Unable to communicate with each other, the enemy lines are unable to defend themselves, and the ground troops immediately move in and surround the area, forcing the enemy to surrender. Surprised by the sudden attack, the enemy drops their weapons. This tactic saves time and costly battles. Ambush. An ambush is a shock attack by camouflaged hidden units. These units wait for the right time and conditions to attack and wait for the enemy to be weakest so that they can win with minimal damage. Trench assault. Trench assault is chosen at night when there is no moonlight. It aims to penetrate enemy trenches silently and secretly, kill sentries and assassinate the main body. Although this tactic was used in the Second World War, it is still used today in the Middle East. Salvo. Salvo means that ground troops open fire simultaneously using artillery, rockets, missiles, and rifles. This tactic puts the enemy army in an unexpected situation and causes a psychological collapse. If you don't have enough ammunition, this can leave you stunned. Flying wedge. The flying wedge is a tactic used by a group of fighters to gain visual superiority and break through enemy defenses. This tactic is formed by positioning in a V formation. The most experienced and strongest soldiers are positioned at the pointed end. On the sides are the support troops. This battle strategy was used by Alexander the Great and the Roman legions. Pincer movement. The pincer movement aims to attack defending enemy forces on 2 or more fronts, so that the enemy fights on more fronts than just the one they are prepared for. This allows you to fight with a small group rather than a large army. In this tactic, strong soldiers fight at the front while other troops attack from the flanks and rear. It is a tactic still used today. Decoy. The decoy aims to draw the enemy's attention in a different direction, so that the main attack is made where the enemy does not expect it. A harassing shot is fired where the enemy can see or hear it. The enemy thinks this is a real attack and responds by moving all his troops in that direction. For a long period of time, the enemy forces focus all their attention on the area from which the harassing shots are coming. This is the enemy's moment of weakness. Distracted, out of ammunition, and tired, the enemy is now weaker. A strong attack from the rear of the trapped enemy will defeat them. Fabian strategy. The Fabian strategy was invented by the Roman general Fabius Maximus Verrucosus. General Fabius aimed to win the war without engaging in open warfare against an enemy stronger than his own army, leaving the enemy with food and psychological problems. This strategy usually involves sudden, small raids that weaken the enemy when he least expects it, by intercepting the enemy's supply and reinforcement lines on the road before they reach the enemy. The enemy is left without support. Over time, the enemy is demoralized and weakened by lack of food. The battle is easily won with few casualties. Encirclement. Encirclement is the encircling of a city in war. Enemy forces are encircled like a lasso. No one can enter or leave the besieged city. Electricity and communication lines to the city are cut. Water channels are blocked. With no food or drink entering the city, the people and soldiers grow weaker and weaker. People blame the government and civil unrest begins. After a while, the enemy is easily defeated. Asymmetric warfare. Asymmetric warfare aims for an army or group to fight a stronger army. It is a tactic in which the enemy fights using unconventional methods, focusing on their weaknesses. There is no concept of an organized army. The aim is to weaken and demoralize the enemy with fast and effective attacks. There are 5 types of this war tactic: guerrilla warfare, terrorism, cyber warfare, information warfare, and economic warfare. Guerrilla warfare aims to attack the enemy suddenly in small and irregular groups to weaken the enemy. Terrorism attacks civilian targets, undermining trust in the state and creating public unrest and fear. Cyber warfare targets the enemy's cyber infrastructure, cutting communications and logistics links. Information warfare blends in with the population, pretending to be one of them and creating unrest through disinformation and propaganda. Economic warfare targets the enemy's economic resources, reducing its fighting power. Trojan horse. The Trojan horse is a tactic of war aimed at deceiving and catching the enemy by surprise. A gift is left on the enemy's border that will not arouse suspicion and that he cannot refuse. The enemy takes the gift inside and places it in the center of the city. At midnight, when everyone is asleep, the secret lid of the gift is opened. A few soldiers come out of the gift. Silently, they open the secure gates of the border. Outside, there are thousands of soldiers waiting for the gates to open. As soon as the gates open, the attack begins. Caught off guard, the hosts are easily neutralized and the battle is quickly won. Scorched earth. Scorched earth is an old tactic of warfare. The army using this tactic enters the territory of the stronger enemy and fights them in a pitched battle, when suddenly they decide to withdraw from the battle. The enemy thinks he has won the battle and celebrates his victory. The retreating army burns farmland, bridges, communication lines, roads, supply depots, and kills animals. After a while, the enemy is weakened and easily defeated. An example of this tactic is Napoleon's campaign in Russia. Russia, which did not engage in open warfare against France, which was stronger than it, retreated, destroyed all the grain and livestock, and set fire to Moscow with its own hands. Because of hunger, cold, and disease, Napoleon Bonaparte's huge army of 600,000 men was almost wiped out. Feigned retreat. Feigned retreat is a battle strategy in which the army fighting in the open aims to lure the enemy into a trap by retreating. The army fighting in the open suddenly retreats, and the enemy army, thinking it has won the battle, attacks in a disorganized manner. The army using the feigned retreat tactic signals to the archers previously placed at the top of the hill when the time is right. Suddenly, the enemy is showered with arrows and easily defeated. Don't forget to subscribe to be notified of similar content. You can contribute by sharing your views in the comments. Happy day!